The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus said to his disciples, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He takes away every branch in me that does not bear fruit, and every one that does he prunes, so that it bears much fruit. You are already pruned because of the word that I spoke to you. Remain in me as I remain in you. Just as a branch cannot bear fruit on its own unless it remains on the vine, so neither can you unless you remain with me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever remains in me and I in him will bear much fruit, because without me you can do nothing. Anyone who does not remain in me will be thrown out like a branch and wither. People will gather them and throw them into a fire. They will be burned. If you remain in me and my word remain in you, ask for whatever you want, and it will be done for you. By this is my Father glorified, that you bear much fruit and become my disciple. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise you, Lord Jesus Christ. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
Right before Mass, I was talking with Dennis, John. I told him I had a joke to tell him. I wasn't going to tell you, but since there's so few people here, I've got to be entertaining, so you'll come back. Seems like there was this guy, and he was having lunch or dinner. I guess it was dinner. Probably it was God, in a restaurant with God. And as they were sitting there eating, God sneezed, and he didn't know what to say. Now, the interesting thing is that I was going through some of my old homilies, and that was the start of a homily I gave back in 1994, somewhere around there. And I thought, I wonder why I did that, because it makes no sense as far as these readings go. But let's stop and think about some of this. You know, I also want to tell you that, you know what plagiarism is? Okay, plagiarism, when you take somebody else's idea and you don't give them credit for it. So I'm going to give credit for who I got the idea for what I'm going to tell you today. It comes from His Eminence Cardinal Timothy Dolan of New York. And the reason I even mentioned that is because this past week I heard him give a short talk to the graduating seniors of the Catholic high schools in New York. It was kind of interesting because he says they have more than 5,700 seniors graduating this year. He says, and normally they would have 2 or 3 masses where they would all gather at St. Patrick's, but because of the COVID virus, they couldn't. And so there was a spattering of students there representing each school. There were students that were serving the Mass for them, did the readings and all that. But the interesting thing about it was his reflection for them. And I thought, that's good. I've got to mention that. And then when I get here, again, my good friend Dennis tells me that that I should tell you, if you're here for the 50th, it was the 50th, right? Anniversary Mass from Sacred Heart, Notre Dame, you're at the wrong place. It's in the chapel. And I got to thinking about that, and I thought, you know, this is good that I could speak about this, about the Catholic schools in New York and the ones we have here. You know, we have very good schools, Catholic schools, and I would encourage you, if your children aren't in the Catholic schools, to consider putting them there. You know, it's a good atmosphere, and it's well worth any money. And we have funds that'll help you. The bishop has started what they call the Guardian Angel Fund, where if you need help financially, they can help you get to the Catholic schools. And when you stop and think about that, the gift of a Catholic education is tremendous. You know, I've got, I don't know how many years I went to school, 16, 17, about 20 years of education. And even maybe 22, think about it. But all of it but 4 years was in Catholic schools. And it didn't hurt me that much. I don't think it did anyway. Except I do have some cramps in my fingers from the nuns hitting my hands and my knuckles. But getting back to Cardinal Dolan, he said, you know, think about this. You as students, and you as parents even, you've missed so much. And that this year could be the best year of these students' lives. Because of the pandemic, they were denied so much. And he says, think about that. Because it makes you start thinking about me, we, and thee. Me, you know, geez, you know, this isn't fair. Me, I'm the one that's suffering here. I can't go to the prom, I can't go out eating, I can't do anything because of this pandemic thing. My whole life is messed up because of the pandemic. But then, once you get to thinking about it and reflecting on it, you start thinking about, well, you know, we're all in this together. We're all suffering. We're all missing out on things. Everyone, we are the ones who suffer. And where do we get the strength to suffer? It's from thee, the Lord. And it's because the Lord is there for us that we know that we can go on. You know, last week's gospel, I'm sure if you weren't here last week, it was about the Good Shepherd. Remember, he says, I am the shepherd, and you are the sheep. And think about that. What do sheep do? They gather. And it's like you're gathered here. We are gathered here. We cease to be one, but a community of faith that believes and follows the Good Shepherd. We are together in this. And then we look at today's gospel. Isn't it interesting? I am the vine, you are the branches. What's he talking about here? What he's talking about is that God is the main source. He is the source of our life as true Christians. He is the source, and we wrap around him like the vines, the branches of the grapevines. They wrap around them, and those that don't produce get cut off or pruned. But those who believe, and when he says those who don't produce, he's talking about you've got to live what I give you. You live the life, because you see, not only are we attached to him, not only are we attached to Jesus, but he's attached in us. Every one of us in baptism, he came to us and he's with us. So what do we do so that others see Jesus? This morning, Bishop Barron, if you've never heard of him, look him up, he's really good, commented, we need to stop and think, what did we do today for Jesus to draw other people to him? And think of this, that vine that we are, we're the branches connected to it. We draw our spiritual faith and trust in God from Him. It's like the sap that goes to those branches that produce grapes. His sap comes through us, and it produces goodness in the world because of Him. Okay. Any questions? Just raise your hand. I'll answer your question. Well, nobody ever asks questions, you know that. I have a group, a small group that come, we celebrate Mass together, there's about 8 of us. And I finish each one of them, I'll say, any questions? And they never have a question. Well, one guy does, but we don't count him. Okay.